Hello my friends, it's Justin Michael. Welcome back to my channel, and of course welcome if this is your first time visiting. I hope everybody's doing well. This is going to be my second installment of my Yves Reynaud collection. So a while back I started a series which I wanted to showcase decks by Yves Reynaud because I've become somewhat of a big fan of his. And I have the majority of the decks that he has for sale now on his website, aside from a few like the new Sans and there are a few other stragglers, but for the most part, I decided that I wanted to get all of the decks in his collection because I thought that they were at least the historic decks were very significant in terms of my education with historic tarot, and they're just nice to have in my library, but also because his quality is unmatched. In all the decks that I've ordered from him, I've never once had an issue with quality, never missing a card, never any damage, never saying, oh, well, last time it was better. He's extremely consistent and professional. He's also very available. If you have a question or a concern, he'll email you back within usually a few hours. And his shipping is fast. They come from France. You get them within 2 weeks, usually. Sometimes even faster, and this is, I'm talking COVID, you know what I mean? So like I said, I did in the first video, I did the Jean-Pierre Payen and the deck by Ben Gross. This is going to be mostly tarot in the Nicolas Conver lineage, what they call type 2, and I don't want to get I don't want to sound like I'm one of those people that's just like sounding smarter than they are, and I don't want to talk above my intelligence here, but there are a couple different types of Tarot de Marseille. Type 1 is like the John Dodal kind of lineage, and you can tell by looking at the Devil and the Hangman and the Emperor, for instance. They're different styles, and so that's what they call them, type 1 and type 2. Okay, it's really simple as that. They're just there's certain lineages, and for instance, the Conver and the Pierre Madenie are part of the same lineage, right? And so most of the modern decks that you see today are somewhat based on Conver. At least they have been up until really recent. Super recently, there's been sort of a resurgence in historic tarots, and there's all sorts. But the Grimaud deck, the CBD Tarot by Ben Dove, Jodorowsky, they were all Conver type decks, based on Conver. So that's what I'm going to start. I'm going to start by showing you the Nicolas Conver, and I'm going to show you some other decks in his collection, and I may use some other decks just to kind of compare and contrast. The thing I love about Yves is these boxes. You get these beautiful telescopic boxes that look so nice on your shelf. They're sturdy, they keep the cards nice, and the card stock is beautiful as well. Always cut perfectly, no issues whatsoever. I mean, compared to a lot of the other, and there's a few now, that do these historic recreations. His quality is just so much superior, in my opinion. And I'm just a big fan, So the thing about Yves' work is that he doesn't really, this isn't technically a facsimile, but it's not like a recreation either. It's somewhere in between the two, and that's the art of his work, that I've noticed. Let me show you, for instance, I have here, this is a facsimile from the museum, which is, I believe, the British Museum. Is it British or it's one of them? But this is this was put out by Grimaud, but it's a reproduction. The Bibliothèque Nationale is in Paris. Okay, but just to show you, this is a photograph of the deck that exists in the museum. This is Yves' deck, and you can see it's sort of just restored to its original kind of quality, you know what I mean? So now I've done in a video a while back a comparison of these two, and that's not what I'm going to do here today. I just want to show you the decks in his collection, in case you are having trouble deciding. And these are the backs. They're always really, really nice backs, and the cut is almost looks like it's not. The corners aren't rounded, but they are. They're just really small, and I love that. I have to say, I really, really love it. Until I got this deck, I didn't really know much about Conver, and the only thing I really did know was from the CBD Tarot, which is Yoav Ben-Dov, and he hired an artist to redraw the deck. This is the CBD Tarot. This was my first historic tarot, and technically, I mean, it's debatable whether that's historic because it was redrawn by an artist. That's what Ben-Dov did. He hired an artist, and if you look, so this is the Empress from the CBD. You could see it's very similar, and it was redrawn, and even the facial expressions are somewhat similar, but the lines are very thicker, more prominent in the CBD Tarot. But when I first got into Tarot de Marseille, and I was watching a lot of Tom Benjamin, he really liked the CBD Tarot, and that's how I came across Conver. So I learned that from Tom Benjamin, but here's another one just to give you an example. So that's the Emperor. So it means very similar, and actually these images, the CBD Tarot, if you want to look at them or even print them, they're free on the CBD Tarot website. When he passed away, he sort of left that to the world in his will. You just can't print them and sell them, but you can print them. And I've made several decks. So this is like I said, the Nicolas Conver. Now, I'm going to show you the Pierre Madenie as well, because I want to give you an example. So again, this is another deck printed by Yves Reynaud, and we always thought that, at least it was thought mostly because we just didn't know any better. But people like Jodorowsky and Ben-Dov, they thought that the Nicolas Conver was the most kind of historically accurate because it was the oldest and the most original. Well, that's not true. It's not the oldest Tarot de Marseille because you have the Noble and so forth. But in this specific lineage, they thought it was the oldest. But it's not, because we've recently discovered the Pierre Madenie. I don't know the exact year, but you can see 1709 compared to 1760. So it's 50 years older. But I don't know the exact year this was discovered, is what I was saying. A lot of the decks don't survive. What happens is, because cards are printed and made for usage, so they don't last very long. People use them and then they throw them away. They get beat up, and so they don't last. So there may be some out there that we just don't know about. It might show up in a yard sale somewhere, in Marseille or something sometime. But the way they discovered a lot of these older decks was that printers would, use uncut sheets in their books when they were, they were also bookbinders. So, they would recycle the papers, and so they were taking apart some of these older books, and that's how I believe they discovered the Pierre Madenie. I know that they discovered what's the other one? Hold on, let me see here. The Pierre Madenie. That one, and just a bunch of others they discovered that way. The Nicholas Rollicon. So, again, we have the really beautiful telescopic box, which is unmatched, I believe, as far as all these. Some of his decks come with this beautiful paper wrapped around it. I don't know why all of them don't. That's something I'll have to ask Yves, and maybe some of my Marseille friends can shed some light on that. I guess it has to do with probably the history of it, or maybe he just didn't have them available when he did it. I don't know, but the paper is so beautiful, and this is the Pierre Madenie, and I just want to show you. All of his decks come with a card which tell you about the history, and these are the backs. So these aren't in order, but let me just show you. We'll go back to the Emperor. So it's very similar. It's not the same exact. The colors are different, but this is the Pierre Madenie. The facial expressions are, you know, a common way that people distinguished them, you know. But so these are both in. Now you'll see in the type 1s, the Emperor has like the number 4, and there's some differences in that. But show you here the Chariot, for instance. So show you the Chariot from the Pierre Madenie. So again, it's not exactly the same, but they're part of the same lineage. And you know, they have different initials on the front of the Chariot and so forth. But the Pierre Madenie is just a really cool. I'm trying to. These aren't in order, so, but I'm just showing you some, just to give you an example. Okay, so now we have Justice, for instance. So let me show you. Now this is the Conver on the left here, and then I have the Pierre Madenie on the right. First off, I love the facial expressions in the Madenie and the color. Like, for instance, the olive green that's used, and it's just really so beautiful. We have La Justice in Conver, and then Justice with a V and an I. Like, I guess that's Greek style, or you know. Just going to show you. Okay, so we have the Hermit. Very, very similar, you know. There are some differences, obviously, but, you know, and so when you become a student of Tarot de Marseille, you start to get really into these little nuances and differences in style and so forth. So, but it's just a really beautiful deck, and I'm not going to go through every single card, but I'm going to show you, you know, just a little bit here and there just to see what's available in his collection. So here is the Pierre Madenie, and you have the Hangman. So you can see certainly some similarities and some differences. They said this deck here is very, very pink. Has a lot of pink tones. And like you can see, I don't know how they determined whether that was the original or what. Like, because in the facsimile, let me just pull out the death card from the facsimile here. In the facsimile, you know, you can't really see pink too much. It's like, it looks a little pink, but it's just, I guess, you know, his work is just, you know, it's very intricate, and he does a lot of research and so forth, and he determined that that was originally pink. But you can see this is the exact photograph from the museum. It's not exactly, can't tell 100% that it's pink, you know what I mean? That required some level of research or something. Let's look at the Devil, because the Devil is one of those cards now you can see, you can tell a lot about a deck by the Devil, you know. In the type 1, the Dodal lineage type Marseilles and the Payen, you can see a face in the belly. And even some of the modern Tarot de Marseilles, for instance, I'm going to show you the Millennium edition has the type 1 Devil, and you know, the Tarot by Pablo Robledo and so forth has the type 1. Let me just show you what the rest of the cards look like. This is the Pierre Madenie. There's the Fool. I love the color of green and everything he uses. It's really, this is one of my favorite decks, Pierre Madenie. I just love it. And, you know, it's a favorite of mine. Mary Packard has a version too. It's in a large box. They're bigger cards, and they, you know, were redesigned and recolored, and that's a really cool deck too. You know, you can see a lot of the work. It's this one here. This is the book from that Mary Packard. That's a mass market deck. So, and let me just show you a little bit more of the the Conver. Show you some pips. See, you can see a lot of the pinks even in the tower. A lot of pinks in the deck. And a lot of the original blemishes, you know, from the wood blocks. You know what I mean? In fact, you can go back and look, and I did that comparison, and you can, you know, I talk a little bit about that. So really, really interesting, and that's one of the great things about collecting the Yves Reynaud decks is that, you know, these decks aren't going away. They're historic decks. They will always be significant in tarot history. It's good to have, you know, these in your collection just for, you know, the reason, you know, studying and so forth. So I'm gonna make some room here because I'm not editing my video, so you got to bear with me here. Let's see. So I showed you the Conver and Pierre Madenie. Let me show you another Conver deck that I have, which is this is the by Poncet. Okay, this is a special edition, and it's a modern sort of recreation. It's not in that telescopic box that you'll see, you know, this Conver in. You know, it's a little fancier, and the quality is just so nice. But this is by Poncet, and on the back here it just says, you know, the Florentine philosopher Marcel Ficino was one of the most famous thinkers of European Renaissance. He was the first to achieve the complete translation of Plato's dialogues from Greek to Latin. Research shows that his thought, which merges Platonism, Hermeticism, Christianity, astrology, and magic, is the direct source for the figures of the Tarot of Marseille. And so about that, you know, Robert M. Place talks about that a lot, you know, and that is just, that makes so much sense to me, you know. And if you read, Robert M. Place has a really great book. It's like the history of tarot, Hermeticism, magic, alchemy, and something else. It's a really big book. He talks a lot about that Neoplatonic influence. So now you can see this. First off, this card quality is so nice. These are bigger cards. Just to show you, this is the CBD, so you can see, but they're not gigantic. You know, they're actually really nice size cards. They're on the larger side. So if you like larger cards, this would be a deck. And also, if you like the Conver style, this would be, because you know, it's part of that, you know, it's just redone basically in the same way that the CBD Tarot was redone. I guess this was redone. I don't know. I'm not going to do a comparison today with the Conver, you know, but it purports that it is a Conver, and I can tell just by the facial expressions from memory that it is, you know. So, and you remember the same kind of emperor, you know what I mean? I love the blues, the dark, like navy blues. The colors are just so rich and, you know, really, really nice in this. And it's probably not the most historically accurate. And I believe this is, yeah, it's Poncet. I can't remember his first name. Federico, maybe? I can't remember. Don't quote me. But this is a beautiful deck. And the card quality is nice, and I love the backs. This is be a great deck to read with. The corners are not rounded in this deck, which is kind of cool, but and interesting. So you could round them if you want. I wouldn't touch these. I wouldn't lay a finger on these, actually. But and you know, you have some pink like the other ones, sort of skin tone more. Again, you have the same type of devil. So, really beautiful. There's our full. And then the pips. This is really, really nice quality. And I'm really happy that I got this, and I'm going to spend some time with this deck. getting to know it. But I love the Conver. It's always been, it's what I learned with. It was the first deck that I came across, and certainly the first historic artist whose name I could mention and slightly know what I'm talking about. The last deck I'm going to show you, I think this is the last deck, is the Tarot de Marseille Millennium Edition, and this is by Houdin, I believe is how you pronounce it. This is not a Conver deck. Wilfred Houdin, 2017. So this side here just explains that it sort of is an amalgamation, or like a crystallization of, not crystallization, but an amalgamation of all the traditions of tarot and history, with the specific emphasis of sacred geometry, which they believe exists in the deck. The reason I like this deck more than anything is, and this is a modern deck, it's created in 2017. Let me show you the backs. Always nice backs. The card stock, like I said, with Yves Reynaud is just phenomenal. This has like a sort of a matte surface, more matte surface. But the reason I really like this deck is because, when you lay them out, and Sherryl Smith is the one who sort of sold me on this deck. The shapes that you see, because of the geometry, because it was made with that specific kind of intention in mind, you can just see so many different things, especially when you're reading in like that open reading style. But the colors are so sharp. It looks Conver. In fact, when I did my live last week, I gave a lot of bad information because I hadn't really looked at these decks yet, and I was just going. I decided a long time ago I wanted to get all the decks in his collection, so I just had been ordering the ones that were on my list, and I didn't really get it. I had them actually mixed up, but this is not a Conver. It looks a lot like Conver. There's a lot of similarities. The facial expression, as you can see, is different. Here and there. This reminds me of like Pablo Robledo's a little bit. I forget my friend Mendy from the Artistry Tarot did tell me that this was very similar to another deck. I just don't remember exactly. I did look at the Pablo Robledo earlier, and I didn't see. I did see some similarities, but it wasn't identical. And these cards feel great. They have those small rounded corners, which I love. I just prefer that. It's beautiful. It looks like they're square. It looks like they're not rounded. But they are, and they don't. You don't have to worry about digging them up too much. They shuffle really well. They just, like I said, his quality is just unmatched, in my opinion. So. One of the things I found interesting, well, you have this looks like very much like a Conver type hangman. I think that so the death card. Well, this isn't the other. This is the from the museum. It's facing the other way, but very similar. It's have that pink kind of flesh tone. The devil in this deck, for instance, is a type 1 devil. So you have, this is what, like for instance, the Dodal devil looks like. He's a face in the belly. There's different types, different variations of that. But that's what you find in this deck. This is like a mutt. It's a. I love that. I love that sun. I mean, it's so colorful and pretty. This is a modern Tarot in Marseille, but it's based. It has a lot of respect for the old tradition, which is what I like, But it's still somewhat modern. So let me show you some pips. This reminds me of the Conver. The pips look very much like the Conver. Love the colors in this. I just love it. I mean, I could do a whole video on a comparison between this and the Conver, and that's not what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of showing you the decks in the collection. I did show you the backs, but I just want to make sure. Here's the Two of Pentacles, the Wilfred Houdin. So this is part 2 of my Yves Reynaud video, my Yves Reynaud collection, and I think that's about it, guys. I think I'm not going to show you any more decks because I don't want to put too much in here. So look out for my third installment where I'll show some different decks in his collection. And you know, I guess until next time, love and peace. Bye bye.